Hello and welcome to Efficient Strategy Gaming. Today I'd like to give you guys a comprehensive guide on air combat. So let's get into it. I have studied the wikis and the paradox forums over the last few days, and air combat is an incredibly complex mechanic in Hearts of Iron 4, but hopefully I can demystify it. When I was looking at the wiki, it's very helpful, but it is very technical. There are a lot of like math equations, and it's pretty wordy. So what I found was when I started reading it, I really had to force myself to concentrate and try to interpret what was going on the wiki. So that's what I'm going to try to do for you guys here today. The first thing, few things that I want to go over with you is how to organize your air wings. And what you want to do is organize them in multiples of 200. And this is because each airport unit, so the capacity of each airport is 200. So here you have Northern England, there's 6. 6 times 200 is 1200. So the air capacity of this airport is 1200. So as you're moving your air wings around the map, you're eventually going to come into like an area that only has an airport of 200. So it's probably best to just keep your air wings at 200. It'll be the easiest way of moving things around the map, especially because you can see right here, there's 2,000, there's 1,200, there's 1,800. So the max air wing size is 1,000. So if you had 1,000 air wing moving around the map, you'll hit 600 or 200 at some point. So you get the idea. The next mechanic that I want to talk about is air efficiency, mission efficiency. And mission efficiency, so if you're an advanced player, you'll know that to get the best mission efficiency, you need to put all your air wings in the middle of the province that you want to defend or attack in or whatever you're trying to do. And so like, let's take northern France here. The most air efficient airport would be right in the middle here. And that's of any air province. So if you go down here to the southern France, the middle would probably be right here. But you could also probably make an air base over here that would be even more efficient. And air efficiency affects basically how many sorties you can get into the air and how well you can get air superiority, which leads into my next point. What is air superiority? So you have these pretty colors here, and the darker green you get, the more air superiority you have. And yellow is neutral, and red is you lack air superiority in that air province. So light red means that you have a little better air superiority, but if it's dark red, you lack air superiority whatsoever. And so besides being in the middle of a air province, other things that affect air superiority are the different types of air units. Fighters, heavy fighters, strategic bombers, and CAS all have an air superiority of 1. So I think even naval bombers have air superiority of 1. Let's see here. Yes, they do. So how many of those different types of units that you have in a province affect how well you can do air superiority, combined with your mission efficiency, which is affected by how close you are to the center of whatever province you're going for air superiority in. The one unit that does not give you good air superiority that you guys need to know about is the strategic bomber. And the strategic bomber's air superiority is 0.01. So don't use those if you're looking for air superiority. And then the one caveat to all these units right here having an air superiority of 1 and the tactical bombers is the heavy bomber. And the heavy bomber, for its production cost, will give you the best air superiority. And it is 1.25 for a production cost of 28. It also only takes 2 aluminum. Fighter 1s have air superiority of 1, and cost 3 aluminum for a production cost of 24. So can we do better in a different type of unit type? Cass's production is only 22 and has air superiority of 1. So actually, if you wanted to get the best air superiority for your buck, you would go with Cass. And you would mass Cass wherever you needed that air superiority. Okay, next mechanic. Why do we want air superiority? Well, air superiority, in my opinion, is the absolute best buff or debuff that you're going to have in the game. So we're attacking here in England, and as you can see, my opponent lacks air superiority, and it says it's difficult to organize an effective defense when the enemy has air superiority. So what happens when you get this debuff? Well, basically, you start to suffer from attrition, an increased amount of attrition, and you also, your divisions decrease in speed. And it's to the point where if you're trying to go on an offensive attack and you're in between two provinces, you would want air superiority in the province that you're attacking from and the province that you're attacking into. And that would make it so that your attack rating would increase, and then you could also move out of the province, the air province that you were attacking from quicker. So I hope that made sense. But always make sure that you don't have this debuff and that your enemy does have that debuff. So let's talk about the other types of air stats that we have. So say I'm attempting an offensive into the Ukraine here from Romania in the Eastern Balkans. If I wanted air superiority in both of these air provinces, what would I do? Well, I'd have fighters here in the middle of this air province to get me air superiority down here. But then what about the province that I lack any airports in? Well, if I was to strive for the best way of getting air superiority over here in the next province, I would build heavy fighters and I'd put them right here closest to the border. Because heavy fighters have a longer range, and the more range that they cover, the more air superiority that you can get in the province that you're attacking into. And as I said before, heavy fighters have the best bang for your buck in terms of air superiority rating. You do not start off with the game with heavy fighters researched in most of the majors. Correct me if I'm wrong down below, but I do not think that you get heavy fighters in any country at the beginning of the game. So that means that you're sacrificing something else to research heavy fighters. So I want to show you a way around this, and that is the fact that at a 1 air superiority, I can use a tactical bomber, and look at all the range that I have, to gain air superiority in the province that I'm attacking into, if it's a big province like the Ukraine. So you have tools at the beginning of the game in order to get air superiority, and tactical bomber is one of them. And this leads into the next stat, which is range, and why range matters. So if I'm attacking into that huge province from Romania, and the range of my fighters is only 700 kilometers, well, the arc that basically the air wings can cover is part of the equation to determine air superiority. So you can see these different arcs and what they cover in different air provinces matters in the calculation of air superiority. So if you have that increased range, the air unit with the greater range is going to be more useful attacking into a province that you have no airports in. Other stats that you see here that deserve our attention. So basically, these stats, I'm going to try to demystify them for you. But what you need to understand is like one of the things that confused me the most when I first started Hearts of Iron 4 was the fact that I thought that agility means that this aircraft could get into the air more often. In other words, take off, do an air combat, come back down, and then get up in the air quicker. That's not the case. Agility is actually how well they maneuver in the air against opposing aircraft. So there's a calculation. The agility on a fighter one is 50, and the agility on a CAS one is 35. So it basically is a roll to hit against the opponent's roll to hit. So that's the way you need to think about it. Agility, how well I can hit an opponent's aircraft. What actually matters in getting sorties out is speed. And speed also helps with the air attack as well. So the max speed of a fighter is 500 kilometers an hour, and the max speed of a CAS at level 1 is 390 kilometers an hour. And basically that's going to give an advantage to the fighter to hit the CAS because the CAS is much slower. As we talked about before, range matters in covering provinces in order to get air superiority, especially where you don't have airports. Air attack is once you've hit, how much damage do you do? Air defense is how much damage can you take? So that is pretty straightforward in terms of air attack and defense. Let's go over the different types of missions that we can have. So let's talk about, so these are the different types of missions that we can have. And I'm just going to go over the major ones. Fighters can either do interception or air superiority missions. And it's not very clear, it wasn't clear to me until this week, until I did all this research, what each one of them did. So I would just pick both. In all my playthroughs, if you watch my videos, I pick both with my fighters and hope that the AI can sort out the rest of what would be better. But now what I think I'm going to do is interception on defense, air superiority in offense. And air superiority, as it says in the wiki, is synonymous with having fighter escorts. So if I'm going to an adjacent air province, I need to have fighters with my bombers. And what's going to happen is, with air superiority clicked, the fighters will attack the defending fighters first. Conversely, in interception, the fighters will attack bombers first with priority. So it depends on what you're trying to do. The other thing is interception will not give you any air superiority. So if you're just getting creamed and you don't want to vie for air superiority, but you still want to shoot down bombers, use interception. If you're using air superiority and you're like dark red, it's just not going well, what's going to happen is your fighters are going to get overwhelmed by the enemy fighters and they're all going to get downed. So you need to switch modes. And you need to micro this mechanic. It's very important. Close air support is going to give you air superiority, and it is also going to disrupt enemy divisions and basically destroy enemy equipment. So close air support with CAS is very powerful. But it is my thinking in the current meta that you basically need to have CAS and fighters, or CAS and tactical bombers, work together in conjunction unless you just want to lose all your CAS. Okay, other buttons that we have up here. Other modifiers that I'd like to talk about. If you want to do a port strike, which can be very effective because your little airplane here, your little naval bomber, which does not cost a lot of production, can take out a battleship, which costs thousands of naval production. So how do I get the port strike to work? Well, I got to click on port strike, but then my opponent needs to have less than 30% air superiority for that mission to be effective. So that's very important. It's a very powerful thing, but you need to make sure that you have air superiority in the province that you're trying to attack. The other thing about port strikes is your opponent's ability to see your bombers that are going on the port strike is 1/10 the amount that it normally is. So your naval bombers can get in there, do a port strike, and get out before anyone even notices it. And attack bombers have this ability too. And I believe CAS does too. Yeah. Naval strike is just as it says. There's no special modifiers for that. Let's transition into modifiers for paradrops. So your paratroopers will not attack unless you have 70% air superiority in the province that they're leaving from and the province that they're going into and all the provinces in between. So when I was doing my OP Russia build and I couldn't get the paratrooper attack off, it was because I did not have greater than 70% air superiority in all three of these regions because I was going from Nord-de-Pas-de-Calais into southern England here. So that's an important modifier. The other modifier is I don't think that your strategic bombers can fire off nukes unless you have a certain amount of air superiority. I forget what the exact number was, but it was something above 60%. But as you know, I don't use nukes, so that's not on the forefront of my brain. Okay, other things to consider. It's always better, in my opinion, to mass your troops. So let's think about attacking from Romania here into Ukraine in the example that I was talking about earlier. If I had a spearhead attack here, let's say we're going Barbarossa, we're going all the way from here and we're attacking all the way along this line. I think that the way to do it is get air superiority in the province that you're attacking from and into the province that you're going to. And don't even vie for air superiority in other areas if you're just struggling getting air superiority in the two areas from where you're attacking from and into. And follow your spearhead around with that air superiority. So this is going to take a lot of micro, and I have videos on this that you can check out, how to do Operation Barbarossa, how to micro your spearhead divisions, and you can check those all out. But what I've learned is because the air superiority mechanic in the current meta is so strong, you want to follow your spearhead divisions around with your airplanes on air superiority mission or on ground attack, because that'll give you air superiority anyways. And this would be to the detriment of air superiority in every other province. I think that it is that big of a mechanic because, as you know, what I like to do is encircle the enemy with my spearhead. So wherever my spearhead is, I need to make sure that I have air superiority, even if it means I have superiority nowhere else. So that is probably the best way to attack. I think that as you're attacking, you always need to keep an eye on these green and red provinces and make sure that you're green where you really need to make it count. Other mechanics, if you just can't micro, you can actually put air wings and have them follow armies. And problems that I found with that is them just doing weird things. You're not able to concentrate your efforts. The missions that you can choose the different missions, but they'll follow you around kind of randomly. Sometimes the airports get overcrowded and the AI rebalances that after a time, but it doesn't really give you air superiority where you need it. It doesn't concentrate your air force, and I don't know how good it is, but if you're just like a casual player, I would use it 100%. And I wouldn't micro my troops. I would just use, field marshal orders, throw up all my air force to follow the different armies that I have and have at it. Yeah, it's real fun to do that. It's real easy to do that. But if you want a more advanced play style, then you got to micro the air yourself, and it can get quite tedious. But I think that what I described to you in this video and keeping the air wings at 200 is the best way to achieve this. So thank you for joining me, guys. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of content, and I'll see you on the next one.